Thank you very much, Lala. Welcome everyone. We talk about bird endemism in Mindanao. And first of all, I'd like to say that because of the many wonderful members of the Wild Bird Club, we have many wonderful pictures about birds in the Philippines. I'll be using quite a few of those in my presentation. And all of them are birds endemic to Mindanao or to Greater Mindanao. For example, the silvery kingfisher. What is endemism? Why do we think this is so important? Why are some species endemic, other species are not? And different levels of endemism. A little bit about conservation status, and then I'll be showing some examples of birds that are endemic to Mindanao. So what is endemism? I think all of you know endemism is a species that is restricted to a certain area. However, that's a very vague term. Of course, we can all imagine some birds live in some areas and some birds live in other areas. We have a desert, for example. Species that live in that place don't live in tropical rainforest. You can imagine that. There's a mountain range. We have different species living there compared to in the desert or in other areas. However, some species are restricted to very small areas that don't have these very specific geographic boundaries. And why is that? Well, usually when we talk about endemism, we talk about countries. So we say a species is endemic to a certain country. For example, to the Philippines. But if we compare the Philippines with other countries, for example with Vietnam or Malaysia, they're approximately the same size, about 300,000 square kilometers. If we look at the number of endemic species in these countries, there's a huge difference. Vietnam, which is here on the mainland, there's only 10 species endemic to the country. In Malaysia, there are 6 species endemic to this area. But the Philippines, we have 234. That's almost a third, that's more than a third of the number of species occurring here are endemic to the country, which is a huge number. Now, of course, we can see Vietnam is part of the mainland, so we can imagine bird species that live here can easily cross the border. They don't have passports, they don't have these geological. Also, in, for example, Malaysia, here and there. But even if you look at, for example, the island of Borneo, the whole island of Borneo, which is about twice the size of the Philippines, same number of species, approximately, but only 52 of those are endemic. That's about 8%. Compared to the Philippines, 35%. So the Philippines is very special, with a very high endemism rate. So why is that important? Well, it's important for the conservation of animals. It doesn't apply just to birds, it also other species. A while ago in 2000, a bunch of scientists came together and they started thinking, hey, biodiversity in the world is declining, we have to start protecting that. But where to start? There's so many areas where declining populations are. So where do we start? Now they came up with a list of 25 conservation priority areas, and they call them hotspots, the hotspots of conservation. And you see, for example, the tropical rainforest in Brazil, the whole Mediterranean basin, but you also see the Philippines as a single country, as one of those 25 hotspots. Not the whole of Sundaland, not the whole of Southeast Asia, one country only is very important. And why is that? Because of endemism. In fact, if you look at the top 8, the Philippines is number 2. Number 2 on the list of worldwide priority areas for conservation. That's how sounds about it. Sorry. Number 2. And if you look at how they come up with these numbers, why is it number 2? It's they calculate endemic number of plants, endemic vertebrates, and also very important, the ratio of these species per 100 square kilometers. And then we see, for example, that endemic plants per ratio, the Philippines ranks number 2 in the world. 64.7% of plants, 64.7 plants per 100 square kilometers are endemic. Same with vertebrate per area, also number 2, 5.7 endemic vertebrates per 100 square kilometers, which is a very high amount. The fifth reason why the Philippines is there is because of the percentage remaining forest cover, which is very, very low. We rank #1 in the world, with only 3% forest cover remaining. 100 years ago, the Philippines still had about 90% of their country forested. Now that's about 3%. So for conservation, endemism is very important because it allows us to see what are the priorities for conservation of our biodiversity. But why are these species endemic? Why is the Philippines so special? Well, for that we have to go a long time ago, during the ice ages. There have been several ice ages in the history of the world. The last one was approximately 12 to 15,000 years ago. At that time, an approximation, we didn't have satellite photos at that time yet, approximation of how the world looked like from above is like this. A very large ice cap. Compared to, at this time, when we are between ice ages, we have a very small ice cap. The result is, of course, if all the water evaporates, falls out again as snow and does not go back into the sea, that slowly the sea levels drop. The water is retained into the ice caps, and so the sea level drops. At the moment, climate change is accelerating the process. We are still getting warmer, so the sea levels are rising. But the result of that is that the land areas change. The sea doesn't go straight down. If the sea levels drop, then you get more land area, connecting islands together. Those who are familiar with the world see that Europe doesn't change, the UK is connected to mainland at that time. Also here, for example, Sri Lanka is part of India, especially Southeast Asia. Wow, huge changes. 12,000 years ago, New Guinea was part of Australia. We're connected. Animals could freely go from one place to the other. You can see Sulawesi, and then Borneo doesn't exist at that time. Sumatra, Java, all of them are not only connected, they're part of the mainland, Southeast Asia. So you can imagine animals, birds also, can very easily go from one place to the other. Populations can interchange, so evolution is in that whole area mixed. But the Philippines, you can already see it, it's already at that time, or it's still at that time an archipelago. So it's separated from the mainland. Species living on these islands continue evolving separately from the rest of Southeast Asia, or most of the rest of Southeast Asia. And that's why we have many species that do not occur anywhere else in the world. If you take a closer look, you can see that Borneo, Sumatra, Java, Malaysia, all one part, and the Philippines already disconnected. There's a sea strait between Palawan and Borneo, and also here between the Sulu Archipelago. However, you can also see it's not exactly the same as we know it today. Palawan, you see the dark outline is what it used to be, but it's much, much larger than it used to be. What happened in the West Visayas? All of these islands are connected. Also in Mindanao, you see changes. So that's what we call the Ice Age Islands, or the faunal regions in the Philippines. We have 6 major faunal regions in the Philippines. Greater Luzon, which is Luzon as it is today, including Polillo Island, Marinduque, Catanduanes, all of those are together. Mindoro is surrounded by very deep straits, so it's almost the same as it is today. West Visayas is completely different. Panay, Negros, Cebu, Masbate, Ticao, Guimaras, all of them were one island at that time. Mindanao, my goodness. Half the country was Mindanao at that time. Not only is it Mindanao, including Basilan, but also Siargao, Dinaga, Bohol, Samar, Leyte, all of those were connected at that time. Sulu was one island, Palawan was a big island, and then we have several smaller islands. For example, Camiguin Island is very special, hub of endemism, Siquijor, Romblon, the Blas, Babuyan, and Batanes Islands. Those were already separate at that time. A very good illustration of this is the bleeding heart pigeons. It's an endemic genus to the Philippines, they don't occur anywhere else, and we have 5 different species within the country. So you see, in Luzon, we have Luzon bleeding heart, which also occurs on Polillo Island. In the West Visayas, we have the Negros bleeding heart, Visayan bleeding heart, which occurs on Panay and on Negros. Probably it used to occur in Cebu, but it already went extinct there locally. In Mindanao, we have a Mindanao greeting heart, which also occurs on Samar and Alayte. So they're all connected. But not all bird species are endemic to the Philippines. And of course, birds can fly. Now, the bleeding heart pigeons don't fly very well. They're more ground-dwelling and they prefer to stay put, so they don't migrate. Other species do migrate. So we have different sorts of species in the Philippines. Wow, 5 minutes, really hard. We have migrants, 110 species that fly up and down. From Siberia, where they breed, in the winter, where it's cold there, they come down to the Philippines and other countries, Australia, overwinter here, and then they fly back. And then there's resident species, 425, that are always here. Now, not all residents are endemic, because some resident species also occur in other countries. But some species are endemic. 234 species in the Philippines occur nowhere else in the world than in the Philippines. So there's different levels of endemism. Non-endemic, little egret, for example, you see that everywhere in the rice fields. But there's also populations in other countries, in fact, all over Africa, South Asia, up to Australia. Those are not endemic. Then we have near-endemic species. There are 10 species in the Philippines, for example, the reddish cuckoo dove, Philippine cuckoo dove, which also occurs on this small, tiny island in Taiwan. So if it would be going from there, it would be an endemic, but because it's also living there, it's not an endemic to the Philippines. Also, so there are species near Borneo, near Sulawesi even, almost endemic to the Philippines. Then we have endemic species. 234 species in the Philippines occur only here and nowhere else. Doesn't mean that they occur all over the Philippines. They occur on some islands, not all, but they do not occur outside of the Philippines. But some species go further. For example, Mindanao Turrican hornbill occurs only in Greater Mindanao, Ice Age Island of Mindanao. So they occur Bohol, Samar, Leyte, Mindanao Island, but not outside of there. Next presenter, JC, might have a different opinion about specifically that, as he's trying to stir up trouble again for the sake of it, but he'll talk about that later. And then one step further, for example, the blue-capped wood kingfisher is endemic to Mindanao Island only. This species can only be found on Mindanao Island. One more, the Zamboanga bulbul. It was named after the peninsula. Now the thing is, it also occurs on Basilan, so it's not actually an island endemic, it's a greater island endemic. But it only occurs here in this small island. And just to put that in perspective, if we compare it, for example, with the Maya bird, the brazen tree sparrow, everyone knows that species. It occurs from Europe, all the way over Asia, all the way up to even Australia. It occurs over a very large range. Compare that to the Zamboanga bulbul, it occurs, well, you can barely make it out, the little dot there. That's the only place in the world you can find this species, which makes it very rare, very special. It's also very vulnerable for threats or conservation. So the Zamboanga bulbul is near threatened. Population, they are going down. They're not yet threatened with extinction, but they're getting there. If we don't do anything, they will be threatened with extinction. Also, for example, the blue-capped wood kingfisher, which is the only species that is endemic to Mindanao, which is actually threatened with extinction, is vulnerable, meaning if we do not act, it is very likely that this species will go extinct in the end. And like that, there are 81 species in the Philippines that are threatened with extinction. Another 63 are near threatened. Populations are declining, they're going extinct in the end if we do not start acting. So this is a list of all the species that are endemic to Mindanao Island only. 20 different species. Different species occurring only in Mindanao Island, and you can see some of them are least concerned, meaning there are still a lot of them and we don't need to worry about them yet, but most of them are near threatened. Their populations are declining, mostly because habitat is disappearing, and the blue-capped wood kingfisher is already vulnerable. So we have to be proud of these species and know that they are special. They pride in the fact that they're only here. The Apo Mayna occurs only on Mindanao Island. The cryptic flycatcher cannot be found anywhere else in the world. The grey-hooded sunbird is a beautiful bird, but you can only find it here on Mindanao Island. The Mindanao lorikeet, very difficult to find, it's hiding here. It can only be found here, and then it's still very rare. Yeah, I'm almost done. The Breaker's Cookie Shrike can only be found in Mindanao. Mindanao pygmy babbird, it's a beautiful bird, no? It can only be found here. If you want to see it, you have to go to Mindanao. Mindanao rackettail, same thing, only here. Mindanao white-eye, only here. Olive-cap flowerpecker, can only be found here. Biscuit flowerpecker, same thing, only in Mindanao. So, thanks for all the photographers that contributed to this presentation. And that's basically all I want to bring. This is a very special place. So many species that occur only here, not just Mindanao. Other islands in the Philippines are the same. And please take pride in it and hopefully go out and see them someday. Thank you very much.